Thank you all. Thank you all for your presence today. Thank you for your prayers. De modo particular, quiero dar las gracias a nuestros hermanos hispanos por su presencia aquí hoy. Ustedes son un fuerte testimonio de la santidad de la familia. Gracias, gracias, gracias. I would also like to repeat my thanks to Archbishop Vigano, our Apostolic Nuncio, with us today. His being Pope Francis's representative to our country, his presence here signifies the presence and support of Pope Francis for what we are doing today. In our Catholic faith tradition, young people around the age of junior high school or high school receive the sacrament of confirmation. It's normally administered by a bishop. At a confirmation ceremony I celebrated recently, it was in a large Hispanic parish. Two of the young people shared some reflections on what their confirmation meant to them. They said that their confirmation gave them the grace to go forth and build a civilization of truth and love. Their words, a civilization of truth and love. I could not have said it better myself. And that, my friends, is why we are here today. Both are necessary, both together, if we wish to have a flourishing society, truth and love. This is the legacy that we have received from our ancestors in the faith. To my fellow believers in Jesus Christ, I would call our attention to those first Christians in the city of Rome, that first generations. They were so often scapegoated by the pagan Roman government. But when a plague would break out and strike the city, and the well-to-do would flee to the hills for safety until the plague subsided, guess who were the ones who stayed behind to care for the sick? The Christians. They did so at great risk to their own health, to their very lives. And not just the Christian sick. They cared for all the sick, regardless of their religion, of how they lived their lives, or even what they thought of the Christians themselves. It is this kind of love and compassion in the service of the truth, especially the truth of the human person, that has marked the lives of the holy ones of our own faith tradition and others as well. Think about it: hospitals, orphanages, schools, outreach to the poor and destitute, giving without concern for getting anything in return. Seeing in each human being, especially in the poor and destitute, a priceless child beloved by God, whom God calls to turn away from sin and toward him, so that they might be saved. In 1839, a woman by the name of Jean Jugan met one such priceless child of God, a blind old crippled woman that nobody cared for. That night, Jean carried the woman home to her apartment, put her to sleep in her own bed. From this profound encounter was born the Little Sisters of the Poor, who even today are loving, caring for, and providing home for thousands of elderly who deserve dignity and care. These are the very nuns who now face the possibility of being shut out of spreading the love of Jesus to the needy because of their refusal to comply with the healthcare mandate that violates their moral convictions, convictions which stand on the truth of basic human dignity. Let us take a cue from our predecessors in faith and what they have inspired in us, and not in humanity's frequent failings and sins. Like them, we now in our own time need to proclaim and live the truth with charity and compassion as it applies to us today. The truth of a united family based on the union of the children's father and mother in marriage as the foundational good of society. Every child comes from a man and a woman. Every child has a right, a natural human right, to know and be known by, to love and be loved by their own mother and father. This is the great public good that marriage orients us toward and protects. The question then is, does society need an institution that unites children to the mothers and fathers who bring them into the world, or doesn't it? If it does, and we say it does, that institution is marriage. Nothing else provides this basic good to children. Yes, it is a foundational truth, and one to which we must witness by lives lived in conformity to it, and which we must proclaim with love. Love for those millions of loving single mothers and fathers who struggle to pick up the pieces of their lives and succeed in creating loving homes for their children. They need and deserve our love, affirmation, and support. But also, love for the husband struggling with fidelity. Love for the woman who feels abandoned and pressured into abortion. Love for the teenager struggling to believe in the heroic vision of love that makes sense of chastity. Love for the single person who cannot find a mate. Love for the childless couple trying to cope with infertility. Love for the wife who finds herself nursing a sick husband in her marriage bed. Love for the young person trying to navigate through sexual identity issues and may feel alienated from the church because of it, maybe even because of the sort of treatment received from some who profess to be believers. To all of you, I say, I know that you are a child of God, that you are called to heroic love, and that with God's help you can do it, that we love you and we want to support you in living your God-given call. Okay, I'm going to take it one step further. Let's not forget, we must also proclaim this truth, especially with love, for those who disagree with us on this issue. And most of all, for those who are hostile to us because of it. We must be careful not to paint our opponents on this issue with broad strokes. There is this tendency in our culture to do this to groups of people the powerful don't know and think that they don't like. We must not do that. We must recognize that, yes, there are people on the other side of this debate who are of goodwill and are sincerely trying to promote what they think is right and fair. Granted, it is misdirected goodwill. But even from those from whom we suffer retribution, and I know that some of you have suffered in very serious ways because of your stand for marriage, still we must love them. That is what our ancestors in faith did, and we must too. Yes, it is easy to become resentful when you are relentlessly and unfairly painted as a bigot and are punished for publicly standing by the basic truth of marriage as a foundational societal good. It is tempting to respond in kind. Don't. For those of us who are Catholic, we just heard our Master command us in the Gospel proclaimed at Mass the day before yesterday. Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. We must not allow the angry rhetoric to co-opt us into a culture of hate. Yes, we must show love toward all of these and more. Love is the answer, but love in truth. The truth is that every child comes from a mother and a father, and to deliberately deprive a child of knowing and being loved by his or her mother and father is an outright injustice. This is our very nature. No law can change it. Those with temporal power over us might choose to change the definition of marriage in the law, even against all that we have accomplished through very generous participation in the democratic process. But our nature does not change. If the law does not correspond to our nature, such that there is a conflict between the law and nature, guess which will prevail? People will figure it out. We can take heart from what we see happening now in the pro-life movement. Back in the early 70s, public support for abortion was growing rapidly. And as with marriage redefinition today, a generation gap opened up in the polls. Many said that opposition to abortion would literally die off. That was the future. Before long, it would no longer be an issue. Instead, something unexpected happened. A relatively small band of faithful believers held the line on the sanctity of human life in the womb. And today, 2 generations later, the pro-life movement is flourishing like never before. We now have the most pro-life generation of young adults since the infamous Roe decision. People have figured it out. They figured out that it is a human life that is within the mother's womb, and that abortion, yes, really does harm women. They've figured it out, that it's good to cherish that human life and to surround the mother with love and support so a truly happy choice can be made, the choice for life. People, too, will figure out that a child comes from a father and a mother, and it's good for the child to be connected to his or her father and mother. Now, these truths may seem obvious to us. I find it hard to believe I have to actually say it. But, you know, they're not true to everyone while we're in the heat of controversy. But they will figure out this truth about marriage because it, too, is in our nature, and it is a key to individual and societal flourishing. All we have to do is look around us and see that our society is broken and hurting in so many ways. There's so much work to do to fix and bring healing. Yes, it is very complex. Many different things need to be done. We need to fix the economy. We need especially to pay a living wage to working class families. We need to fix our broken immigration system. We need to improve our schools, especially those that are failing children from poorer families. Yes, we need to do all of this and more. But none of these solutions will have a lasting effect if we do not rebuild a marriage culture, a culture which recognizes and supports the good of intact families, built on the marriage between a man and a woman committed to loving faithfulness to each other and to their children. No justice, no peace, no end to poverty without a strong culture of marriage in the family. This noble cause is a call to love for us, a call we cannot abandon, that we will not give up on, and in the end, we know will triumph. So take heart. Truth spoken in love has a power over the human heart. We are here today to march for marriage, to pick up the torch and pass on to a new generation the truth about marriage. Not just the abstract truth, but the lived reality that makes a difference in children's lives. So, my friends, we must not give up. The truth will not go away, and we will not go away. Let us take heart from the legacy we have received. Let us place our trust in God, and let us go forth to build a civilization of truth and love. Thank you all, and God bless you all, and praise to God forever and ever. Amen.